The global ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface, forming a world that seems endless and still mysterious. Beneath the shimmering surface is a busy living system filled with animals and plants, where every species has a role in the struggle dance of survival. Yet about 90% of the ocean lies in zones that remain hidden. Near the upper edge of the deep is the Twilight Zone, a band of water where the weak light of the sun. This layer stretches from about 660 feet down to roughly 3,300 feet below the surface. But the average depth of the ocean reaches almost 4 times this distance, with the deepest known point close to 36,000 feet. Since the late 20th century, researchers used crude subs and remote robots to explore the deep ocean. One example is ROV SuBastian, owned and run by the nonprofit Schmidt Ocean Institute. Linked to a ship by a cable, SuBastian sends video and data from the dark, shining light into the deep and giving brief views of the hidden world below. But before we reach those depths, we pass through the Epipelagic, or sunlight zone, which covers the ocean from the surface down to about 660 feet. This is a lively region. More than 90% of all marine species live here, and many live in coral reef communities in warm tropical seas, where food, shelter, and mates for breeding are usually easy to find. The Portuguese man-o-war has a gas-filled float called a pneumatophore, which holds it at the surface so winds move it, while downward-hanging tentacles catch prey. These drifting animals belong to the Neuston, a group of creatures that live where air and water meet. Here, tiny plant-like organisms called phytoplankton are the main producers, using sunlight to turn water and carbon dioxide into oxygen and sugar by photosynthesis. Without this work, the deep ocean below would soon run out of energy and life. Below the Epipelagic, we move into a dim, shadowed realm. This is the Twilight Zone, the Mesopelagic. Down here, there is not enough light for photosynthesis. That means no plants, no algae blooms, nothing that can convert sunlight into energy. So how does anything survive? The answer is marine snow. This is the constant shower of organic particles, dead plankton, fecal pellets, and decomposing matter that drifts down from the sunlit waters above. Everything down here either feeds on it directly or feeds on something that does. In a place with so little light, you'd think creatures would give up on using vision altogether. Instead, the opposite happened. The Twilight Zone is home to the most spectacular light show on Earth, and it's all created by the animals themselves through a process called bioluminescence. The Gossamer worm, known as Tomopteris, is a segmented worm in a group called Polychaetes, a word that means many bristles. Unlike its relative the earthworm, it does not burrow in mud, but instead moves through the open sea. It waves its bristled limbs like canoe paddles to swim. After it is eaten, the gut inside its clear body shows the color of its most recent meal. This can reveal it, because many of the creatures it feeds on are bioluminescent and give off light. Some related animals have found clever ways to deal with this problem. The bloody belly comb jelly moves its rows of tiny hair-like cilia to draw in prey, and the light they reflect creates a soft rainbow gleam. Its body turns a dark red color that acts as camouflage, because red light does not travel down into the deep sea and is removed closer to the surface. As a result, this red shade hides the stomach and blocks any glow from the prey inside while they are being digested. There are snail relatives drifting here as well, such as Cardiopoda placenta, a rare open ocean gastropod, and another species called Carinaria japonica, which has a large swimming fin and travels upside down while it hunts for food. Siphonophores, which are related to jellyfish, are not a single creature, but a group. They are floating colonies made of many small animals called zooids that cooperate and divide up the major life functions among different parts. Nectophores act like swimming bells that push the colony forward in much the same way a jellyfish umbrella helps it move. Pneumatophores provide lift and help control how the colony floats. At the far end, gastrozoids hang down tentacles lined with stinging cells into the water, and their role is to catch prey. This shared lifestyle resembles that of multicellular animals, with the different zooid forms acting much like separate organs. This arrangement gives Siphonophores a special benefit. In most animals, serious harm to one organ or body part can lead to death. If individual zooids are injured, however, the rest of the colony is less affected. They can copy themselves over and over, and the colony may become almost immortal. In fact, this Siphonophore, which belongs to the genus Apolemia, is considered by researchers to be the longest animal ever seen. Simple estimates based on the position of the remotely operated vehicle suggest it stretched to about 50 meters in length, making it longer than a blue whale. Many tunicates also live as colonies, including pyrosomes and salps that float like long necklaces. All these examples of zooplankton are grouped as holoplankton, meaning they drift for their entire lives and mostly move as the currents push them. Meroplankton, in contrast, are only plankton, for a limited time. And are usually the larval stages of fish, or of species that spend their adult lives in the deep seafloor environment, such as mollusks, crustaceans, and echinoderms, which will eventually settle on the bottom. For some species, the situation is reversed, and the larval form is fixed in one place. The life cycle of many jellyfish starts with a polyp stage that grows on the ocean floor. Planula larvae settle and change into a scyphostoma, which then reproduces asexually to form a stack of developing young medusae called a strobila. These young jellyfish separate one after another and grow into pelagic adult medusae. The midwaters are crowded with these drifting adults. Because the seafloor is so distant, many jellyfish in this region never go through a polyp stage. Instead, complete their full life cycle, drifting in the open water. Some species keep their young larvae inside the bell while they grow. The dinner plate jelly swims with its tentacles stretched out in front, a hunting method that lets it quietly approach larger prey without alerting them through even the slightest movement in the water. For almost every creature that lives in the Twilight Zone, there is one main weakness that exposes them to predators. When a hunter looks up from below, their bodies appear as dark shapes against the faint light that filters down from the surface. This problem has pushed many of them to evolve surprisingly clever ways to stay hidden. Some rely on counter shading, with darker colors on their backs and paler colors on their bellies, so they can blend in when seen from above or below. Others take this idea even further by making their own light, using bioluminescence from special glands called photophores that cover their bodies in patterns of glowing spots, like those seen on the firefly squid. As they swim upward, they brighten these lights to match the strength of the sunlight shining down from above. This same idea even inspired a naval strategy known as diffused light camouflage, where ships used controlled lighting to blend into the background of the night sky. Speaking of legendary predators, you think the megalodon is still alive deep down in the ocean? I have pulled together a bunch of research and made a video about it, which I have linked in the description and on the screen. So, bioluminescence is the ability of living organisms to produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. And in the Twilight Zone, up to 90% of animals have this ability. They use it for hunting, for hiding, for communicating, and for finding mates in the vast darkness. Take the lanternfish, for example. These small fish, only about 0.23 to 0.26 feet long, have rows of light-producing organs called photophores running along their bellies. They use these lights for something called counter-illumination. Here's how it works. When a predator looks up from below, it can see the silhouette of the lanternfish against the faint light coming from above. That silhouette is like a neon sign saying, "Eat me." But the lanternfish is clever. It adjusts the brightness, effectively erasing its shadow. It is like having a built-in invisibility cloak. Then there is the anglerfish, one of the most iconic creatures of the deep. The female has a modified dorsal fin that extends forward like a fishing rod, and at the tip is a glowing lure. She dangles this lure in front of her enormous mouth, and when curious prey comes to investigate, she strikes. Her jaws are lined with needle-sharp teeth that angle backward, ensuring nothing escapes. But the anglerfish has an even stranger adaptation. The males are tiny, sometimes 10 times smaller than the females, and they have one purpose in life: to find a female. When a male finds a female, he bites onto her body and never lets go. Over time, his body fuses with hers. His circulatory system connects to hers, and he becomes nothing more than a sperm-producing parasite. It sounds horrific, but in a place where finding a mate is nearly impossible, this strategy ensures that when the female is ready to reproduce, she always has a male available. The hatchetfish takes a different approach. Its body is compressed so thin that from head on, it is almost invisible. And its skin is covered with reflective crystals that act like mirrors. But it also has photophores on its belly for counter-illumination. This fish has essentially combined two camouflage strategies into one, making it one of the hardest animals to spot in the Twilight Zone. Now, not all bioluminescence is blue, even though that is the most common color, simply because blue light travels farthest through water. Some creatures, like the stoplight loose-jaw dragonfish, produce red light. Most deep-sea animals cannot see red wavelengths, so this fish essentially has a private spotlight. It can illuminate red-colored prey that appear black to other animals, giving it a huge hunting advantage. It is like having night vision goggles in a world where everyone else is blind. Then there is the phenomenon of deep sea gigantism. In the Twilight Zone and deeper, many animals grow to sizes far larger than their shallow water relatives. We are talking about squid that reach 13 meters long, jellyfish with tentacles extending 30 meters, and amphipods the size of dinner plates, when their shallow water cousins are barely a centimeter long. Why does this happen? First, being larger makes you less likely to become prey yourself. In a place where food is scarce and every meal counts, predators can afford to be picky. If you are big enough, you are simply not worth the energy expenditure to attack. Second, larger animals can go longer without eating. They have more energy reserves stored in their bodies, which is crucial in an environment where your next meal might not come for weeks or even months. Third, the cold temperatures of the deep sea slow down metabolism. This means animals grow more slowly, but live much longer, giving them time to reach enormous sizes. I have also researched and made a video exploring this gigantic phenomenon. If you are interested, I have put the link in the description. For centuries, sailors told stories of massive, tentacled monsters that could drag ships beneath the waves. These stories were dismissed as myths until the late 1800s, when dead giant squid began washing ashore, proving they were real. But even today, we have only seen living giant squid in their natural habitat a handful of times. They live primarily in the Twilight Zone, and they are incredibly elusive. What we do know is that they have the largest eyes of any animal on Earth, up to 30 centimeters in diameter. That is the size of a dinner plate. These enormous eyes are specifically adapted to detect the faint bioluminescence of prey and predators in the deep. They can gather more light than any other eye in the animal kingdom, allowing them to see in conditions that would be total darkness to us. Scientists have calculated that these eyes can detect the silhouette of a sperm whale, their primary predator, from over 100 meters away in the dim light of the deep. That early warning system gives them precious seconds to escape. But giant squid are not the only mysterious giants down here. There are reports of even larger squid species, like the colossal squid, which may grow even bigger than the giant squid. The largest colossal squid ever found was 10 meters long, but it was a juvenile. Scientists believe adults could reach 14 meters or more, with eyes even larger than those of the giant squid. These animals live in the deep waters around Antarctica, in some of the most inaccessible parts of the ocean, which is why we know so little about them. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of the ocean floor. We've sent rovers to explore distant planets, but we've only explored about 5% of our own ocean. And the Twilight Zone represents one of the largest unexplored frontiers on Earth. Every time scientists send a submersible or remotely operated vehicle into the Twilight Zone, they discover new species. Not just one or two, but dozens. Some expeditions have found that up to 40% of the animals they observe are completely unknown to science. In 2020, scientists from the Schmidt Ocean Institute were exploring the Ningaloo Canyons off the coast of Australia. In just one expedition, they discovered what they estimated to be 30 new species, including bizarre Siphonophores, unusual squid, and strange gelatinous creatures that don't fit neatly into any existing category. One Siphonophore they filmed was estimated to be 45 to 50 meters long, forming a spiral shape, unlike anything they'd seen before. It was so unusual that the footage went viral, with people comparing it to an alien spaceship. And with millions of square kilometers of Twilight Zone to explore, and limited funding for deep-sea research, we're only able to study a tiny fraction of what's out there. The more we learn about the Twilight Zone, the more we realize how resilient and adaptable these ecosystems can be. Life has persisted here for hundreds of millions of years, surviving mass extinctions, ice ages, and dramatic shifts in ocean chemistry. The creatures here are survivors, and understanding how they've adapted to past changes could give us insights into how marine life might respond to future changes. What surprised you most about the Twilight Zone? Drop a comment below. And if you found this deep dive into the ocean's mysteries fascinating, make sure you are subscribed. Don't forget to hit the bell and share it with your friends. Thanks for diving deep with me today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember that the greatest mysteries on Earth aren't in space. They're right here in our oceans, waiting to be discovered.